Hey everyone, welcome back to some new malicious compliance stories. I hope you had a great day. If you would like to help me grow this channel, please press the like button, it really helps in the algorithm. And if you haven't already, why don't you make this the video that you subscribe to the channel? And with that out of the way, let's start with the first story, shall we? The first story is called You Wanna Know How I Do It? Years and years back, I worked at an art gallery. I also sold these super cute little origami crane earrings I hand lacquered there. I'd perfected my technique over many months of trial and error. Some other shops sold origami earrings, but they were usually just paper, which would fall apart if they got even a little damp or only superficially coated with something, which wasn't much better. I had artistic pride in presenting unique and beautiful pieces with real staying power. Part of what I did as an employee involved teaching classes, which I enjoyed. I taught watercolor, creative writing, paper crafts, jewelry making, and origami. Usually I came in with a specific project in mind for my students who ranged in age but were mainly in the 30 to 60 year old age group. I was well known at the gallery, so people knew what to expect. My watercolor classes sometimes had so many people attending that we had to turn people away. One of the students who came in for classes once in a while, let's call her Kay, age about 65, also consigned work with our gallery. Her pieces were cute, but overpriced. Nice beads, but $60 to $100 for a single strand bracelet in our town was pretty steep. My earrings flew off the shelves at $14 a pair, while she made maybe 1 or 2 sales a quarter. I think that's where Kay got the idea to start making my earrings. She thought she was being subtle, but I saw her early in the day standing next to my earrings with a certain look on her face. When my paper crafting class started, Kay immediately asked if I could teach her how to fold a crane, and her eyes started over to my earring stand. I took a deep breath. I only had a few students that day, so I got the other ones started on some paper quilling with the objective of making a flower. They all had at least a little prior experience, answered all their questions, made sure they were going strong, and sat down next to Karen. Now, when I teach origami, it's usually a class full of students all doing the same thing, and we start small. A flower, a ladybug, a leaf, little things that help them learn the basic folds. I also start them on larger paper, 6 inches, or for those who struggle with that, 8.5 inches. I usually go one fold at a time, make sure all the students have that fold down, then move to the next fold. I correct their folds, I have diagrams, I show them the finished pieces they are working towards at the start. We move on to more complex pieces as their ability grows. Not with Kay that day though. First she wants to learn my techniques to make her own earrings to sell, and then she wants to interrupt my class. Fine, I pulled out my 3-inch paper, a sheet for me and one for Kay. I went through the folds quickly. Not so fast that it seemed like I was leaving her behind on purpose, but fast enough that she finished her fold just to see me beginning the next before she had her bearings again. I didn't go out of my way to check her folds. I didn't correct her when her fold ran askew. I corrected major issues that wouldn't lead to anything like a crane, so she wouldn't think I was sabotaging her, but no more than that. In the end, I had a beautiful, crisp crane sitting in front of me. She had a squashed-looking malformed duck with one huge wing. She sort of frowned at it. You know, I said, cranes are exponentially harder to fold the smaller you go. What size paper did we just use? 3-inch. What size do you use for your earrings? She jerked her head in the direction of my display. 1.25. Kay never bothered trying to make my earrings after that. The next story is called Don't Mess with an Engineer with Too Much Time. In August last year, 2020, I successfully handed in the last piece of work, a CFD simulation study. This cemented my master's degree in advanced mechanical engineering and aerospace with a first-class distinction. I am very familiar with fracture mechanics. As a recent graduate, while the world is closed off, getting an entry-level position is somewhat of a challenge, with companies struggling to stay afloat in these troublesome times. And the landlord still comes chomping at the bit for his rent money. I now currently work for a company run by a colorful megalomaniac which has a jungly name specialized in warehouse-based online commerce. I am vastly overqualified for my position, but needs must. I am currently in the department that deals with quality. One of my main responsibilities now is going around the warehouse inspecting items for defect, issues with returns, repeated problems and frequently damaged items. I'm passing judgment before auditing them, fixing problems as I go, and raise tickets as necessary. It's not a bad job to be doing. One of the things I raise tickets for is preparation of items. This happens if an item is fragile or regularly broken and needs additional protection. It is up to me whether it is worthwhile sending things for prep. When I was given my training for this role, my mentor warned me about someone whose login literally appears as synonym of battleground. He warned me to expect their messages on the in-house messaging system to be equally as dramatic sounding. They are one of the individuals who read my tickets and audits and sets the follow-up in motion, but don't necessarily see all the info I see. They also work the opposite shift to me. So there is no overlap, and the only time communication gets through is at the start and end of each shift as we see messages left. A few nights ago, my computer on wheels told me to check a bucket of detergent for damages. I was sent to a few locations and judged the product to be unpreppable. It's a container made of brittle plastic that has a hazmat item inside and has 5 kilograms of product inside. The reason it was deemed so is our standard test to see if an item will need prep. We drop it from 3 feet high. If you damage that unit, all others should get prepped. This item will definitely break on impact, and even with bubble wrap it will need many layers to stop this from happening. As a result, the cost/benefit of wrapping up the 1500 of these items in inventory doesn't add up. Especially as it would take multiple back-to-back shifts to fix this in-house for just this one item. Battleground left me a message. If I believe the item will break, it must be analyzed, and they believe the item must be prepped, although they aren't aware of how many there are in stock. They actually are the same level as me in the hierarchy and have no actual power to direct me as they wish. I protest that there is no way I'm going to start dropping 5 kilogram buckets of hazmat on the floor. Then a message is waiting for me at the start of my next shift to do your job and just analyze the bucket, which was actually all in caps. Okie dokie, malicious compliance time. I got home the morning after, having not been sent to look at any of those items that night. In an effort to satisfy the request, I began designing the bucket on my PC. I knew the dimensions, I knew the material, and I had the software licenses to create a detailed impact simulation. I discovered that in order to absorb enough impact to not break the bucket, I would need 6 layers of cushioning at least for 3 feet drops. The highest this item is stored is 24 feet up in the air on pallets. Naturally, I proceeded to continue my investigation. And by the time my next shift rolled around 3 nights later, I had an 8-page technical report on my structural analysis of the bucket with a rough cost-benefit analysis included and a feasibility assessment. I raised a ticket for a damage issue, CCing Battleground in for all updates, attached my report and listed it publicly in the building. The next shift, I was simply met with a ticket resolved notification. The last story is called Double the Workload. The security company I was working at was a bit different from what I was expecting as far as security goes. You know the stereotype, everyone is 40 pounds overweight and all they do is the occasional walk around a building before going to a guard check and sitting around all night. That's not what this company was completely about though. The company primarily did patrols for various clients and made stops at designated areas. We also answered alarm calls on top of that. Now, this company did have a few stationary sites that I worked from time to time, but I was primarily a patrolman, which I didn't mind. Now, the events. My overlords at this company were a charming couple. The owner was a lifelong policeman who took a chance after being denied a promotion and started his company in the 70s while his wife handled the business side. Both were nice enough, but listening to reason was another story. New accounts were regularly added to our routes, sometimes with little or no notice, and we were expected to adapt. Adapting to the changes was usually not a problem, until they became a problem, that is. On one of our overnight routes, the overlords updated an existing account. The owners of the account wanted more weekend coverage due to issues with disgruntled staff. They had asked for 3 more stops at their site on Fridays and Saturdays. Normally this was not a problem, until you take geography and basic timekeeping into account. For those unfamiliar with the layout of the Kelso-Longview area, there's a bridge that separates Longview, Washington from Rainier, Oregon. We had a handful of accounts across the river separating the 2 states, which was normally no problem. The problem started with one of the larger sites wanting 3 more stops, and you had to wait till roughly 1 AM to hit the stops. This stop alone took about 15 minutes. You had to unlock one of the main gates to enter, drive around to make sure there are no open doors, lock the gate, rinse and repeat. Our shifts ended at 5:30 AM and we still had over 100 stops on a regular night and drove around 100 miles, give or take. I wasn't the first to try and conquer this. That honor went to another patrolman in our company. This guy tended to be on the overlord's crap list most days for his attitude, but he was a solid worker. He definitely bit off more than he could chew with how this route was done. He attempted to try the route using his normal methods, but ended up going 2 hours over. He was, of course, reprimanded for not being able to complete the shift on time. The next time he had this route, he decided to cut his lunch hour in half and barely made it on time. He then got reprimanded a second time for not using his lunch as intended. He was fed up at this point and told the overlords he was refusing to do this route on Fridays and Saturdays anymore, as he rightfully thought it was ridiculous. Now comes my turn. I took a look at the sheet and started formulating a plan in my head for how to best tackle this route. After a few minutes, I think I was able to come up with a possible solution. I ended up doing the first half of my shift, cramming all of my normal stops into the first 5 hours. Then I took my lunch around 1 AM. And then I took care of my extra stops in the last half, usually finishing up around 5:15 AM. Of course, this meant I didn't have time to wash my truck at the end of the shift, but the bottom line was held up and the route was finished. I did this routine for about 4 weeks, when I was finally talked to by my immediate supervisor. Apparently, the overlords finally saw what I was up to and weren't too happy. My supervisor tried to threaten me with a write-up. But I didn't back down and told him I'd keep doing it that way since there was no other way to do the shift. He dropped the issue and went on his way. After that, the overlords tried having someone they trusted do the route. He ended up being as late as the first patrolman. After this, the overlords realized maybe this isn't a feasible route and took the extra stops off of the property. They weren't happy for a bit, but they calmed down after a while. But they didn't learn, and about 2 years after this they again tried something similar. But that's a story for another day. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a great day. Bye bye.